Live from Energy Stadium in Houston, Texas. Oh, Doctor. It's the SOGOpod.
I'm Kinder.
I'm Frank.
And welcome to the completely unsports ball related edition of the SOGOpod. Now that the Super Bowl is over, football season is done, and the Falcons had literally the documented biggest choke in Super Bowl history.
I really wish we recorded this before the Super Bowl, and I could have been like, man, the Falcons won. Can you believe it? That way, when we put it out, it's like the most wrong thing in the world. Like every podcast that recorded before the presidential election but was going to post after the presidential election. It's like, well, you know, now that when Donald Trump's gone back to his hole.
Yep.
No, that didn't happen.
Nope. Yep, the Falcons choked. Tom Brady is still annoyingly good. And I
don't know. I mean, his performance in that game was lackluster at best. He just happened to have a good team behind him.
yeah.
Because, like, he threw a pick-six interception. They got a freaking, like, a touchdown for the Falcons. Like, his first touchdown in the Super Bowl was for the wrong team.
But we're not a sports ball podcast. We're a video game podcast. And boy, we got some stuff to talk about with you today. First off, we finally got our hands on Doom. And boy, is it fucking good. God damn,
awesome.
we really both love Doom. It's really, really good. The hype is real. There is nothing... I don't really think there's anything I can say bad about Doom.
I mean, outside of, like, you know, the lackluster multiplayer, but, you know, I don't care.
I'm not a
big... Well, that's the thing. Like, well, one, when I was playing it, I had shitty internet, so I wasn't going to be playing the multiplayer anyway. But also, like, the people that are very, like, adamant about Doom as a multiplayer game, I think they're more like they like the idea of Doom as a multiplayer game because that's kind of what they expected.
Yeah.
You know, people played multiplayer Doom back in the day. But really, when you think multiplayer game by id, you don't think Doom, you think Quake.
Yeah.
Quake is the go-to for, like, trend-setting multiplayer, amazing multiplayer, not Doom. Doom just happened to have multiplayer that was okay, you know, with, like, deathmatch and stuff like that. But Quake was set the standard, so...
And also, we are going to talk about the Skeptical Hipster's Guide to Relatively Current Mainstream Video Games You Shouldn't Feel Bad About Enjoying. In other words, we're going to talk about some really underrated games, or games that were rated just okay, and actually we find them really fucking awesome.
A lot better than what people expected.
Yeah, better than what people expected. One of those is kind of getting more of its dues in the mainstream,
we'll
hence
just
the
go
name.
right into that,
Okay.
I guess. We'll go ahead and start with that, and we'll finish up with Doom Talk. Or you want to do Doom Talk and then finish up with that? What works out better for you? What are you feeling?
You know, if we start with a Doom, then they have to stay for the list.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, we got you for an hour now, baby. Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about Doom. So, the game itself. I haven't played a first-person shooter campaign that engaging in a very long time.
Oh, God, yes.
And on top of that, because like the first person shooter market has gone to first person multiplayer games mostly, you know, whether your Call of Duties, your
Titanfalls, your games without a campaign,
Overwatches,
even. Yeah, Overwatch, no campaign.
Yeah, so, you know, all these games that are just multiplayer focused. I mean, well, Titanfall 2 has a campaign in it. It was apparently really good. You know, and of course your Call of Duty games always have a campaign.
Yeah.
They're not the focus. They're not the star of the show. And Doom was like, well, you know what? The multiplayer is the star. The single player is the star of the show because that's what Doom is. Everybody's experience with Doom, even if they did enjoy the multiplayer, is, you know, playing through Doom 1, playing through Doom 2, playing through Final Doom. I played it on the PlayStation 1. The PlayStation 1 version's pretty much exactly the same as the PC version.
Yeah.
The, you know, N64, Doom 64, you know, it's kind of a weird... you know, offshoot of the main game, but it's, you know, well liked in some circles.
Yeah. I like Doom 64.
Well, like it's a weird game because it's like it's Doom, so you can't look up and down. But this is also in a, you know, post GoldenEye era of of the N64, where console first person shooters, had this grandeur about them, with GoldenEye and Perfect Dark and everything like that. And Doom 64 kind of was somewhere in the middle.
I think I actually played that one earlier than GoldenEye, and I had this weird nostalgia for it. I think it came out
before GoldenEye, but again, and this is also GoldenEye was post, was it post Half-Life?
No, I'm pretty sure Half-Life was after GoldenEye. Was
Half-Life 2000? Was that Half-Life, or is that Half-Life?
I'm not sure. We'll have to get up to date on our video game history.
But yeah, still Half-Life set the standard for first-person shooter campaigns, single-player campaigns. Doom was the forebearer of that, and then again, that's what happened back in the 90s. It was Doom set the standard for first-person shooters as this single-player experience, and then games like Quake and Unreal turned it into Unreal Tournament in particular, turned it into this multiplayer thing. And these games came out that were entirely multiplayer focused. Yeah. Because even with Half-Life, you had CS. You had all these multiplayer focused offshoots of Half-Life. Team Fortress, things like that.
Yeah. So, and you can't, you gotta lend credence to your Halo, which again brought it full circle.
Yeah.
Where the focus was couch multiplayer, split screen couch multiplayer.
Campaign, but the campaign was, in the end, it is secondary to the multiplayer.
And Halo 1 was really couch multiplayer and campaign based, really good campaign. Yeah. Halo 2 kind of got a little further from that with Xbox Live. And the campaign was pretty good.
Pretty weak compared to 1.
Yeah, it was weak compared to 1. Still a good campaign, though. I would still play it again. Yeah. And
had some great moments. But you realize half that game is the mission with the Scarab.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's it. And then the other half
it's a really good mission, though.
And then it's intermixed with all the stuff with the
flood.
With the flood, and then
when they invade the ship and all that
Arbiter
beginning.
And all that stuff, the dual campaign of Chief and Arbiter kind of thing.
I thought the Arbiter was a really, really good addition to dual wielding as well.
Oh, yeah,
that was actually a pretty good storyline.
Keith David, so
Keith David. And then you got 3, which kind of started trying to do what 2 did. And then also tried to bring some 1 in there, and it didn't work.
Yeah, and also got up its own ass with its storyline and everything like that, which makes it a little harder to get through. And then 4 was just them rebooting the franchise.
You got Reach. Reach came after 3, and Reach was the first really, really online multiplayer focused Halo that did it right.
Yeah.
Because I think after Halo 2, people started getting on board with focusing more on multiplayer, and you started getting your Call of Duties and stuff, and they started doing it right in their own way.
Yeah, when you start adding in the level progression and single-player-like mechanics into a multiplayer setting, it does change what the multiplayer is. It's no longer just I'm going to match in with a group of 12 people or whatever. We're going to do a 6-on-6 deathmatch. It's I'm going to focus on CTF. I'm going to focus on domination or, stuff like that. There's so many different map types, different game types, different modes, all this other stuff mixed in with multiplayer. And on top of that, you have this consistent progression, and you have these these prestige mechanics where you can reset your progression after you top out and start back over. And that, when you start adding that stuff, then it becomes now I can put 40, 50, 60 hours into a Call of Duty campaign.
Yeah.
Or I can put 12 hours into the campaign, but really I'm going to be spending hundreds of hours in the multiplayer.
Yeah.
And that's where all the focus is at. And Doom does this weird thing where they're the multiplayer is just a multiplayer, and there's fun, interesting stuff there, and
there's no bearing on the story or any bullshit. But it has nothing
to do with anything because it was farmed out to a different company. You could tell that their focus was on that single player. They said, we're going to make a single player campaign that's fun, that's goofy, in it's tributing to the original Doom.
Oh yeah.
In a way that Doom 3 tried to do, because Doom 3 was also a single-player focused game, but it tried to do this weird, demons are scary, hell is scary, so let's make a horror game out of Doom. And Doom was always kind of, horrific. That was kind of its mentality. It always had this sort of, not just, when you see it back in the day, it's this is a scary game. It has some scariness to it. because of the music, the sound effects, the visuals, all this other stuff combined together, sort of put this dread and sense of fear into you. And so they capitalized that on Doom 3 by making it more of a horror game. And I like Doom 3. I'm a Doom 3 apologist.
I liked Doom 3 pre-BFG edition because I think all the people... There was like this weird shift in gamers
there were so many
around
people
that time
complaining about
the flashlight. And there was this weird shift in gamers' like mentality around like 2010, 2011, where they started to realize... And I think that was one of the major events that was a catalyst for this shift, was the flashlight incident, because that was a big thing back in the day.
Yeah.
And, everybody was like, the flashlight sucks,
right.
and blah, blah, blah.
Why can't I just tape the flashlight to the gun?
Yeah, and then there was also things like Resident Evil item management and, things that like seemed like bad mechanics in game and like were annoying and this, that, and the other, and you thought you didn't like it, but later on you find out it added something to the game. It was
the thing that made, like, Resident Evil 4 would not be as good of a game if you didn't have that weird Tetris block fitness stuff into your inventory.
And, they took it out in 5 and 6, and, I'm not saying that's what made the games not as good, because there's a lot else wrong, but they brought it back in 7, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
But it's it's an interesting mechanic that adds to the dread, because you can't make it super video gaming and give you an infinite bag of holding that's just going to hold all your items or whatever. And with Doom, it was just like, that's part of the aesthetic. It's a game where we're showing off the crazy lighting engine, and by having the flashlight, and you drop the flashlight and you're in pitch black darkness, but the muzzle flashes and so it's like this
that was the thing,
it's
too.
super cool. Like,
I remember playing Doom 3 on the original Xbox, and like I was actually having nightmares about it, like not real bad. Just like I was playing it in my sleep and couldn't get any sleep.
Yeah.
And like it was actually my first quote unquote survival horror game, because that's kind of what Doom 3 was.
And like it still had like plenty of ammo and guns and things like that, and you felt like you could beat anything you faced, but you never knew where it was coming from. And there were monster closets, where it's just like things would just come out of nowhere, and now they're funneling in. It's like I literally walked by there, he wasn't there, now he's there now, like weird shit like that. But that's, they're trying to create an experience, and they're trying to capitalize on the horror. Now what Doom does, the Doom 2016, it says, well, instead of capitalizing on the horror, we're going to capitalize on the edgelord cheesiness of being this
just the sheer metal ass fun,
right? Yeah, because metal is cheesy and
like
dumb.
It's meant to be.
Like, exactly.
This is like the Tenacious D of Doom games, but it's actually good.
Yeah, like it's like Death Clock, It's like we're going to take metal and we're going to make fun of it. And I don't know, like I think that they did a good job of pointing out how dumb the entire thing is. Like the entire concept of a demonic invasion on Mars is dumb as fuck. And they just said, well, yeah, it's dumb as fuck, and we're gonna make it dumb as fuck, and you're gonna love it. And they like the fucking opening sequence of that game is just like
it's just fucking hardcore as shit.
Found this dude in hell. And he was encased in stone.
Yeah.
And like that was like so dumb. And then you wake up and you're surrounded by demons, and you just start smashing demons' heads in. And what's the first thing you do? You smash the fucking computer that's goddamn talking to you. And then the dude who's leading you through the whole thing is this like 7-8 foot tall robot guy. And it's just like, what the fuck is this game? It was so dumb. And like you even started to feel like, and like little moments, like spoiler. I mean, there's a moment in the game where there's been this AI, and it's not like this super, over, like it's not like he's a major character, but he's always in the background, like he's helping you out along with the dude Samuel Hayden, and so the 7 foot tall robot.
Yeah.
So there's this AI, and like there's this moment where you have to infiltrate the AI's brain and shut it off.
Yeah.
Because you need his power to open up the portal back to hell. So you do it, and what does the Doom guy do? He fucking saves the AI, because like the dude was just intended to just have the AI be destroyed.
Yeah.
And the Doom guy saves the AI to a little memory card. It's just like little moment like that. Just like, he has a heart. Like,
but then it's like
AI,
whenever you disengage like the little what is it, like the energy tubing or something like that. And it's like gently remove the class from
exactly.
and he's like can't figure out how to do it, and he just fucking kicks it. And
and just like the fucking the sound design in it too.
Oh yeah,
amazing.
Mick Gordon, I believe, is the composer. Yeah. Holy shit!
Like,
I wanted to get him on the show.
Amazing ass music.
He did a phenomenal job on the music.
Right, and it's like that mentality of like, again, just shoving it down like metalheads.
Yeah.
Like throats in a way that like metal's really not that hard.
Yeah,
you can make metal. Like the fucking Brendan Small is a fan of metal, and he makes some of the best metal with Deathclaw.
Yeah,
and so this guy is just a composer, and he's just like, fucking taps and flutters, and just makes this fucking badass like metal as fuck soundtrack.
Yeah, like detunes everything to like fucking drop Q something weird.
And like. It just kicks you
works
in your
so
fucking
well.
ass,
yeah,
and it makes you want to just go, and like destroy. And like when I first started playing, I had a little bit of a fiddling with the controls, a little bit, because it's not like you don't realize how much freedom of movement you have, because I'm so used to old Doom where it's just like, okay, I can look left and right and shoot, and it's a walking sort of thing. Like,
and you're like thinking Halo, I can run and jump. Maybe I can sprint.
But you don't realize that. Okay, you're fucking running, you're jumping, you're
covering huge distances with your jumps. You can double jump at some point.
And then when you get the double jump, you're double jumping, and
like,
you can jump into a fucking glory kill.
Right, and you just literally jump all over the fucking map. Like standing still in Doom is not an option. You just fucking run and gun. There is no cover.
Don't ever stop.
Don't fucking bother with it. Just run and tear shit up. Like the soundtrack especially is just,
and like
it reminds
you get the berserk power up, and you're just going through and
just
ripping and dude in half.
It will remind you just how motivating that metal can really be. It will crank your fucking engine. It will start you up. It is the game to get you motivated for a job interview. Like, we're here to fuck shit up. And
it just kicks you in the ass. It makes you want to keep going because you just want to hear the next musical cue. You want to see the next encounter, and you're just waiting for like these iconic Doom enemies to show up. Like fucking when I saw the goddamn Mancubus, I was like, "That's the fucking Mancubus," and then there was the Cyber Mancubus.
Mine was the Cacodemons. They finally showed up, and they were kind of disappointing compared to everything else. But their glory kills are really good. I knew it was going to have something to do with the eyeball.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But then he reaches in there and just like.
And like just like I feel like even then I'm still like, man, I wish they had thrown in a little bit more. Like, give me some, like, it looks they had the Summoner. Summoner was like the only new thing, and it was kind of based off the Archvile a little bit, in that it would bring back dead monsters to life. But they did a good job of like making it feel like, and like, goddamn, the Hell Knights, like when you first showed up, that's what's so great about it. It's very like Dark Souls-esque in a weird way. And that like
that first Hell Knight was fucking
that first Hell Knight was basically a boss, and you're just like, God, how the fuck do I beat this thing? And then you're fighting 4 of them at a time.
Like right after you beat the first one, you're like, fuck, I have no ammo. Thank God that's over. 2 more show up, and you're just like,
and then same with the Baron of Hell. Like, that's a goddamn boss fight. Like, basically, it's like a mini boss, and you're like, shit, fuck, and now you're fighting 2 of them at once, and there's like 3 Cyber Mancubus, and you're just like, well, fuck you, and you're just going through that motherfucker.
But it never feels impossible because of the freedom of movement, and you can just do so much, and you can kind of cheese it, like you said, like a Dark Souls kind of thing.
The only thing I had a slight problem with in the entire campaign was maybe the boss fights themselves, when they actually they backloaded them so much. They weren't really spread. It was just like, again, this is a very spoiler heavy conversation. So we both have beaten the game, so we're going to talk about the game.
If you haven't played Doom yet,
if you haven't played Doom, stop listening to this. Go play Doom.
Go play it right now.
Go play it right now.
It's the only thing. I'll say this. Even though I am of Overwatch's dickhole, and I have been for like the past 5 podcasts in a row, it's the only thing that's pulled me away from Overwatch long enough to finish an entire game.
Yeah,
like I didn't play Overwatch at all.
This isn't what he's not saying this about Final Fantasy 15.
No, I didn't. Not Final Fantasy, not Pokemon.
He's saying
nothing,
this about Doom.
Fucking Doom.
Doom, and then it was on sale, and I was like, you got to pick it up. And he's like, okay. And he buys it. He's like, fuck, this game is awesome. So that's how fucking good this game is. It will drag you away from everything you're doing.
Yeah, if you're stuck on Overwatch like I was, play Doom. It'll get you off it for at least a while.
Yeah, and then you'll be back to Overwatch.
Yeah.
Because there's always so much Doom. But, I mean, yeah, because it's a campaign. That's the thing. Like, you're just playing it to enjoy it like you watch a movie or something like that.
Yeah, it's really a movie of a video game.
Yeah.
And it's a fucking blast.
Oh yeah, and so but the problem I have was like the boss fights were so backloaded in the game is that they have these, it goes Cyber Demon, a few more encounters. It was after that it goes Cyber Demon, then there's the whatever the Hell Guardians or whatever.
Oh,
the
I know what
worm
you're talking about.
climbs into the armor and everything. Yeah, I can't remember what they're actually called, but like I think they're called Guardians of Hell or something like that. And so there's that fight, and then it's a few more encounters, and then it's the fuck, and it made me pop, like to use a wrestling term. But I was like, oh yeah, fuck it. It was a goddamn Spider Mastermind. Yeah. The very last boss is a Spider Mastermind. So I was like, oh fuck yeah, Spider Mastermind.
Yeah. I wish that boss would have been a little more difficult though. Like,
yeah,
I enjoyed the fight and it was a pretty good fight, but like when it ended, I was expecting like Form 2, Form 3. You know?
Right? Yeah. And I think the boss fight, and not to mention saving the Spider Mastermind for the final boss is cool. But Spider Mastermind was such an iconic thing in Doom and then the Spiderlings too, like the little versions of the Spider Mastermind that were running around, like not having those throughout the campaign. But maybe that's something you save for the sequel.
But then that would have kind of given it away, like I know what's coming.
Right, yeah. But it's like that's what I was sitting there thinking. I was like, why the fuck haven't I seen a Spider Mastermind yet? Like they got everything else is here, and not like I'm glad they didn't have things like the Pain Elemental, which was the one that shoots out the flaming skulls, the possessed souls, or the lost souls. That shoots out those in Doom. They didn't have that, so they just had the lost souls floating around doing their thing.
Yeah,
running at you like flaming skulls, basically. Yeah, but like, and then collecting all the stuff. Like, I wasn't really into collecting the stuff until I got like better at the game. Yeah, because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was just like, I got lost a few times at the very first level. Just
I did too.
Super clear about where to go, but then you just the game. You just start to learn.
You start to get it.
Yeah, you start to get it, and you're like, okay, well, now I see that looks like I can get up there, so I'm going up there, and I'm going to do this. And because there's also like a bit of a fear of getting into encounters when you first start, because you have this mentality of like Doom is a game where you're trying to avoid encounters as much as possible because you want to conserve ammo, and you want to. That's what you did in the original Doom, and now it's like,
fuck it,
ammo. You want ammo? Just kill a guy with a chainsaw. Now you got all the ammo.
Yeah.
Like
fucking. Also the trials throughout each level, like they never feel like you have to do them, but I felt like I had to do them just because I'm an asshole like that.
And they were super cool. Like they kind of
they kind of made you do things that you wouldn't normally do.
Right. Yeah, and they kind of taught you like, okay, here's how you can use this, and then like they had things like the challenges in each level, like, hey, why don't you try killing 6 guys with one super shotgun blast?
Yeah.
And there's always one moment in every level where that is a possibility, and you should try to take it, and like headshotting a Mancubus to death with a pistol.
Yeah,
like
that was fucking
like
hard.
That.
Holy
like,
shit!
Just trying to get the fucking because you can't fucking get him to die before he gets back to life.
And there was like a trick to doing it. I forget what it was.
Glory killed moment. Like you have to get the charge shot, I think, but then it's kind of like a shotgun blast. So
I remember what it was. You had to get him near an explosive barrel first, and then blow him up with a barrel, and then finish him off
with the couple of taps with the pistol. Yeah. I don't know. I thought the game just was amazing, and when I beat it, I was just disappointed because like I
just want more,
play anymore. Yeah, so I went and I messed around with the snap map thing, and it's pretty cool. It's more of a it's like got this multiplayer hooks built in, but there's people making like cool single player content out there. So then I started going through the levels and trying to find all the classic Doom levels and playing those as just try because like. But then the problem I was having was like these levels are built to be homage, like they're basically the exact same as the classic Doom levels,
right?
But then they put the new Doom monsters in them. So the problem is you end up having, because they're harder to fucking kill. In original Doom, you could take out a pinky demon with 2 shotgun blasts to the face, super shotgun blasts to the face, and he's dead.
Yeah.
Like, maybe even 1 if you're close range. Now it's like, no, you gotta fucking really unload on that motherfucker and move out of the way. And so when you gotta take on 4 pinky demons at once, because that's what they would throw you in the other game, it's a little bit different, and then you're running out of ammo. So it's like it's an interesting prospect. But again, like it's cool. It's a good homage, and like finding all the bobbleheads and stuff like that. Like,
I thought that was a pretty cool addition.
Oh
too.
yeah.
I always like those little bobblehead collectibles because there's several games that have done that.
And there's so much, like, dumb shit. It's just full of dumb shit. Like, when you're in the goddamn foundry level, did you ever fall in the lava? You fall in the lava, and you just wait, and all of a sudden, he does a thumbs up, like fucking Terminator going into the foundry
that's pretty good.
at the end. And just... goddamn. And, like, the fucking, like, when you die, it's just as cool as when you kill the monsters of glory kills, because there's, like... I can't remember what it is, but like basically, like I think it's a Hell Knight when you're fighting him. Like he punches you and you die, and you look down, and there's this big gaping hole in your stomach, and you die, and it says just restart or whatever. It's just cool shit like that,
Yeah, there's just a lot about that game. We could talk about it all day, but for right now, we are about 25 minutes in, maybe a little more. So we are going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we are going to start our list. See you in a minute. Alright, so before we get into our list, we actually thought of something while we were on break that we need to talk about because it's been so long since we recorded. We haven't talked at all about Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, exactly. Since the last time we recorded, they've had the major announcements of everything. They even had a Super Bowl spot for Breath of the Wild as well, which I think is going to do wonders for their mainstream appeal. When you start, when people get out there and they see... Like, the trailer shows off a new Zelda game and the main functionality of the Switch, which is it was literally charging next to the dude while he was asleep, woke up, started playing Zelda, said, I'm going to take this to the living room, puts it in the dock, picks up the Pro Controller and starts playing.
Yeah.
Like, that's the game. That's the system, that's the game that tells everybody what they would want from the game. So, let's talk about some of the disappointing things about it. I could care less about the storage size of the system because they do support, SDHC or something like that. Yeah, it's like basically a high-capacity SD cards. Highest ones out there right now are 256, and they cost like $100.
There's actually a... I believe Samsung has a 500 gigabyte now.
Oh, yeah?
They got a huge one now. Samsung does. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculously huge. They might even have a 1 terabyte.
And this thing, they said, will support 2 terabyte if the cards ever come out that are that size.
Yeah, so it's no worries about that.
No worries about that. And it supports it. And they're not like doing some dumb proprietary thing with it. They're doing, just a standard SD
thank
card.
God. Nintendo's finally going on a standard.
And Nintendo's not that bad about their usage of expandable memory anyway. Like when you had an SD card and you took it out and put it back in, it didn't like try to reformat it or anything like that. You could just pull them out, and you could have multiple games across multiple SD cards and everything like that. So they're good about expandable memory, and I think it's just one more thing you got to keep up with. But whatever. The power thing is a little disappointing, because people are out there saying this is just like that it's basically as powerful as a Wii U, which is fine. If it's an HD, it's still an HD console. But the problem is it's not going to get the. I was hoping for at least to be able to meet like minimum spec PS4 games or something, But like Because then you could see more third parties coming in. Because even with the PS4 Pro, even with the Scorpio, they still have to make these games play on the original Xbox One and the original PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
So they can't make these games that go further beyond those specs. So if you could meet PS4 or Xbox One specs, then you could see the third party still, even if it's like playing a PC game on low or whatever, it's still going to look good enough and run well enough to be. But then they still didn't really even meet that.
Yeah.
Which is mild. Again, it's a disappointment because I was hoping to see more third-party support coming into play, but then also when you start looking at having to manufacture cartridges instead of discs, digital downloads might be okay, but I don't have any faith in Nintendo's ability to support a major online infrastructure.
Yeah, well, if they go the route that they did with 3DS, they can make it work. 3DS digital download market isn't bad. It's definitely not Xbox's.
Yeah.
It's not quite as good as PS4's.
Yeah.
But it's not bad. It's functional. It works. Most of my library on my 3DS now is digital. And it's convenient. It's convenient as shit.
And especially when you're talking about a portable console, you would want to have some level of digital infrastructure in place. But then you start talking about the size of these things, and when you're talking about even with 128 or 256 gig SD card, you're probably going to have multiple SD cards if you're supporting anything over 15 gigs.
And that might be part of why they went the route that they did, because maybe they're trying to stay away from having to physically download it onto your console as long as they can.
Yeah.
Because currently, you have to install an Xbox One, you have to install on PS4, and that eats up storage space like crazy.
Exactly, yeah.
So maybe they're trying to avoid that as much as they can, which I can respect. It's Nintendo. That's what they do.
As far as I know, the save data is going to be kept on the console, and that it doesn't write to the carts themselves, which is a good thing. So you free up as much space on those carts to pack them full of games, and they could probably end up making essentially dual layered carts, but more higher capacity carts. Things that would allow them to, and with it being a physical thing, there is always a chance that it could increase. And
which I'm kind of surprised that even mainstream consoles haven't gone to an SD card like format, because flash memory is now cheap to manufacture, and it holds more space than a disc ever could.
It's faster than a disc.
Yeah, it's faster. So I'm not understanding why they didn't just go ahead and do it.
Consoles are not high RPM disc drives. They're probably the lowest they could get.
Yeah, to save them cost.
Right, yeah. So,
an SD reader is nothing. But I'm sure with that, they would introduce a problem with piracy.
Oh, yeah.
So they probably have to wait for some kind of manufacturing plant to start, get a contract with them and make a proprietary thing and ramp up production, XYZ. I mean, sure, there's some reason that's perfectly reasonable that we are.
It would probably end up being the reason why is because of the piracy aspect of it. Not to mention they would probably have to link it to the physical ID of the console, and then at that point you can't resell it, and then and GameStop would have pitch a bitch over that because you can't resell these things.
I mean, we saw how fucking Xbox One's good idea turned into a fucking shit show because people don't know what's good for them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as the years go on, people are coming back around to this idea.
They're digital isn't that bad. I already have to download the shit on a console anyway. Might as well
Of course, it didn't help their argument when, the year that they launched, they had that huge hack of PS4, PlayStation Network, and Xbox Live at the same time. So it was hey, look, this is... If this thing had launched in the state that they were originally saying, this would have been a shit show, because now nobody can play their games, and it can't check in every 24 hours.
Well, you already have DRM anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the DRMs. I mean, the console itself is the DRM.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't have worried about the piracy aspect or any DRM, because that.
Yeah,
consoles are full of them.
Probably 5-6 years ago, not even DRM was a problem. And now it's just
it's an afterthought.
Who gives a shit? By the way, there's DRM. Steam's down? What?
Yeah.
What do you mean I can't play my game?
Steam is the DRM, and when you're talking about, GOG, their whole thing is that their games are DRM free.
Yeah.
So, if you're...
And I do like shopping from GOG. They have a really good platform.
Oh, yeah. It's a wonderful platform, and they have a wonderful, service and everything like that, and offering it DRM free, but that's not even...
Welcome to SOGOpod, brought to you by GOG.com.
Yeah.
Also, Green Man Gaming, because I enjoy going there. It's the same kind of deal,
right? Yeah. And the thing about GOG is like it doesn't like it used to be that was their thing, DRM free. It would say it like literally next to the logo was a little green box that said DRM free. And now it's just not even there anymore, but it's still the case. It's just they don't
for most games. They also sell some games through like Origin and through Steam, like Keys and all that have DRM. But you have the option if you want to, if you're a paranoid schizophrenic afraid, and they say like me, and want your DRM free content. I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then like that fucking
you're one in Windows and a VM. You have a crypto lock on your hard drive,
right? Yeah, and there's that one company, Denuvo or whatever it is, that is doing this new fancy higher tech DRM stuff, and apparently it was in Resident Evil 7 and it got cracked in like 5 days or something.
Yeah,
like
I saw that.
It was supposed to be this big fucking thing. Like every major game had it in there that was coming out, and it was not affecting anything. Nobody had any complaints about it outside the people trying to crack these things. Like, this shit sucks. It's hard. But then they ended up cracking Resident Evil 7 in 5 days, and then the website got fucking hacked and all their emails got released. So it's like, yeah, you picked a bad fight. You know?
Yeah. Speaking of Resident Evil 7, would you like to cut this conversation and go into our list?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, since we already spoiled that one, welcome to the
Skeptical Hipster's Guide to Relatively Current Mainstream Video Games You Shouldn't Feel Bad About Enjoying.
First on the list, since we have already started talking about it, Resident Evil 7. Yes, it is mainstream. Yes, it got high scores from a lot of places, but it is getting a lot of hate on, of course, V, because they hate everything.
They don't like things.
But even places like Reddit, where there's some viable discussion about video games, and like IGN gave it like a 7 out of, which for IGN that's like a death sentence.
Yeah, that's a 1.
Yeah, that's a 1.
IGN is a 3-point scale. It's 7, 8, and 9. 7 is shit. 8 is okay, and 9 is great, and 10's just when they happen. It's like
10's they paid us enough.
Yeah.
Skyward Sword.
There's just a lot of fanboys out there. Well, it's like, and that is like, if I can diverge for a second, I used to listen to an IGN podcast, Beyond, which was the PlayStation podcast, and there's this fellow named Colin Moriarty on there, and he's one of the main perpetrators of this 3-point scale that IGN has now, 7, 8, 9, 10, 4-point technically speaking, 4-point scale, because like he was shitting all over Assassin's Creed 3. He said like this game's like, it's just fucking terrible, like you can't fucking do nothing. I feel like it's so this, that, and everything. It's like a solid 7. And I'm like, if you don't like the game that much, call it a 4 at least. Use the whole goddamn 10-point scale, like. If you wanted to call it a 5, that's a middle of the road. That's literally what like 5 is. It's right in the middle. It's not great. It's not good. It's just it's a middle of the road game. Like if that's what you think of it is, don't call it a 7, because a 7 should be like 8 is great. 8 should be like where most games should come out at.
Yeah. I would say most games should probably be rated a 6 or a 7.
Yeah.
That would be a middle of the road.
Release a game if they didn't think it would get at least a 6 or a 7.
Yeah.
And if you think of this like a school, you pass a test at 70%. So that's the same thing. They're not going to release a game if they think it's going to get lower than a 7, because they're not in that market. That's not their. There are companies that do that, but they're known to really shit. Like it's a shit product.
Yeah.
Not a Ubisoft, not an EA. Not unless they're like under the wire for some reason to get this thing out.
Yeah. And I would say on a true scale, Resident Evil 7 should probably be around an 8.5 to a 9. And that's because the way I describe this game to Frank is if Rob Zombie made PT and was a huge fan of Resident Evil 1.
Yeah.
Because the opening sequence, you have this atmosphere, and it's I don't know who the hell did the research for this game, who came from Japan and went down to the deep south.
Right.
And
they watched a lot of True Detective, I think.
Yeah.
It's like what it was.
And like just the atmosphere when you first get there is just spot on. We live in the deep south.
This game is like, that's the thing people always like. They forget it's a Japanese game. This game is Japanese as fuck.
Yeah, and to be Japanese made, the feeling of being in the American Deep South and some trailer trash's fucking old beat up ass house, it's perfect. They are spot on.
Like, we drive by houses all the goddamn time in this city alone that look dilapidated and run down, but there's still goddamn people living in these places.
Like,
you know,
it's the epitome of redneck, and it's spot on. It's so perfect. And then the characters themselves, there are such diverse personalities. The first guy you meet, he's straight out of a Rob Zombie film. Yeah, perfect. I mean, he's a really good voice actor. The personality is there. He's pissed off. He's mad. He's scary, and he's fucking awesome. Yeah. And the characters you meet later, I mean, it goes through so many different genres of horror. Like, the first bit is Rob Zombie horror. The second bit is like the old lady from the Babadook, or I don't even remember what the hell, Lady in the Water, I guess. Yeah. Just like old pissed off mother, like, or pissed off grandmother kind of thing. Like, it's that kind of horror, and it works. And then, like, the third part is fucking Saw out of nowhere, but it works. Yeah. And like, the last part, not to throw any spoilers out there, but it's like, a creepy ass little girl, like, kind of not really The Ring, but creepy children. Yeah. And creepy kids. Like, ghost shit. And then you have like the Resident Evil, like, grotesque zombies and like weird fucking gory shit, and it's all there. Yeah. But it all works, and it comes together to make such a great horror experience. There were a bunch of times I'm pretty good about holding my ground when it comes to horror games. Yeah. But there were like
fucking terrible.
There were like 5 or 6 times where I'm sitting in my seat and I jumped like fuck. Yeah. And there was once I actually got in trouble with my wife because my son, he couldn't really see me playing. I don't let him watch me play this because he's only 5. Yeah. But he was like, sitting there playing his DS on the couch, and I jumped in my seat and I audibly said, "Shit!" And he said, "Dad, you're not supposed to say that." And Laura got on to me, and I'm like, "Fuck." It was that kind of thing. Yeah. And the reason I say it's not like a fucking 10 out of 10 because it's great. I mean, I'm not going to go on and on about it because we're strapped for time. But the only bad thing I would say that kept it from being like a 9.5 or a 10 was the final boss was pretty disappointing as far as the actual fight goes. And like, it was just over too soon. Like, it was just too soon. It was left me wanting more. There was nothing
Which
bad.
Is a good thing.
Yeah, it didn't stretch it out too far, and there is DLC coming, yes. So that may change. But it did leave me wanting more, and I really, really, really want to play it again.
I feel like a lot of this, though, is like this weird, like, Japanese games in general have become, like, very focused on open world, but they don't understand open world games the way that American developers, Western developers do. I think we went into this before. Just like they make these weird games, but the problem is they get so ambitious. I think that they just end up having to cut so much stuff, and then they put that stuff in as DLC later. Like Final Fantasy 15 was apparently a part of that as well. Like doing the same thing, just because they were strapped for time with that game. In general, with how much time they had, they still hadn't done it, you know? And like, that's the kind of thing. And the same with Metal Gear Solid 5, not to mention on top of that all the Kojima Konami business, but like, it's just how much time they felt strapped for to get this game out, so they had to cut so much crap from it. So I think that that's just a consistent thing amongst Japanese development right now, is now that the consoles are getting more and more powerful, they feel like they have to push it and push it and push it and get more and more ambitious because they have to be these standard bearers or set the standard for what's out there. But anyway, that's enough about Resident Evil 7.
So I would say next on the list, another one of those mainstream titles that you shouldn't feel bad about playing, but everybody gives shit, and it was a great game, in my opinion at least, Dark Souls 2. Yeah. I played Dark Souls 2... Did I play it before? No, I played it right after I played 1. I got on the Dark Souls 1 boat really late, so I didn't really do much PvP.
I think you played it when it came out on Xbox Live Games for Gold.
Yeah, I actually got it free. That was like one of
like the first or second games with Gold games on top of that. So,
I played Dark Souls 1, and the campaign was great. I fell in love with the game, and it was just really fun. Yeah. But the PvP was really lacking for me because I never really got into it. I wasn't good. And I pick up Dark Souls 2 release day, And I play through it, and yeah, the bosses weren't as good as 1.
I mean, the bosses were the worst part about 2 in general, because I think they tried to... They weren't iconic enough, and they tried to...
except for the fucking Smelter Demon. Fuck that guy.
They tried to pad it with more and more bosses, because I think they... And like, the thing I had a problem with was the hub and spoke aspect of the map design.
Which I kind of found that to be a good thing, because
I couldn't tell, like, well, that's the problem is, like, it would make sense in a game where, like, the progression and difficulty were
the same
in
throughout.
relation to each other throughout the entire game. But that's not the case with Dark Souls. You just don't know, is this supposed to be, am I not supposed to be able to do this because I'm under leveled, or am I not supposed to be able to do this because it's Dark Souls? You know,
but
like,
you know, that kind of added to the experience
over leveled
with me.
for certain areas, because you go through one area too soon.
You struggle through that.
You're struggling through it, but you power through it and you finally do it. So now you got all these fucking souls and you're fucking OP as shit. And then when you go to the area you were supposed to go to, it's like dead.
But then it kind of worked too, because like I did that. I struggled through an area and then finally made it, and just like fuck, and got over leveled and went to a different area and then just like fucking cleared it the fuck out. And then I got to an area past that where you were kind of supposed to stop and come back, but I kept going anyway. And I just felt like shit again. Like,
and it made sense in Dark Souls 1, though, because there was a clear path through the entire game, you know. But at the same time, when you first got to Firelink Shrine, it was like, you go up here, you go down there. You go down there, it's these skeletons that are fucking impossible to beat, and then it goes into an area and it's dark as fuck, and it's like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah.
So you turn around and you go back the other way, and that's... You know, kind of, that's why it guided you better, because like I go this way, these guys I can beat in like 2 hits. Okay, I feel like this is where I'm supposed to go, you know. And then when you get done, it's like it's just guiding you through, but it takes you to so many different weird, crazy places along that way. And Dark Souls 2 doesn't do that. It takes you to the weird, crazy places, but then it's like, okay, but I need to stop. Yeah, because I'm in a different area now. I need to reassess.
But I think
where I'm supposed to be right now.
I think with Dark Souls 2, the crowning jewel was the PvP.
Yeah, the
PvP in 2 was phenomenal. I had a whole lot of fun with it. You know, I could run a bunch of different character play styles. Yeah, and it was still pretty balanced. You know, I was never, I was never like a fucking boss. I was never a fucking giant dad up in here. But there was never a time where I felt like I was just completely unviable if I was using a sensible setup. Yeah. Like there were times where I was using a flaming greatsword or a flaming longsword and still able to do things if I played my cards right. Yeah. And I used Moonlight Greatsword, which ended up being one of the more meta builds. And I've never been like a greatsword guy or even a heavy armor guy. I've always been like stealth magic, whatever. Yeah. And I tried it out and it fucking worked, you know. And like the play with the greatsword, like, you know, press B, back up real quick, and turn around, and fucking do like you could do really cool shit with it. And I had some really, really great PvP matches, and it added a lot to it for me. And then the DLC turned out to be pretty damn good, in my opinion. Yeah. So I mean, people give it a lot of shit, but honestly, up to this point, I had more fun with 2 than I did with 3, and possibly even 1 because I was on the 1 boat so late. Yeah. Although, if I'd have gotten on 1 earlier, I would probably see that as the better game.
And that's kind of where I am. Yeah. Like, because I played 2 and I enjoyed it, but I just it didn't click with me the same way 1 did. And I still haven't even played 3. Yeah. You know, I think in a weird way, like the release of Bloodborne and the release of other games that are sort of aping the Dark Souls style have like kind of watered down Dark Souls in a way, and I think that's
don't get me wrong, 3 is a great game. It's really fun. I think I was kind of over it by the time I got all the way through 3. Like I got through 3 and I didn't keep playing. Right. Yeah. Probably because Overwatch.
I mean, that would do it.
Yeah, but I played 3 and it just didn't click with me like 2 did. I think
that's really the problem, though, is that it's like these games, they're taking a break. You know, they haven't really put anything out there as far as I'm aware of, like what's next for From Software and everything. I think they should really kind of just let Dark Souls take a break, you know, and you know, don't make another Bloodborne either, because that's basically a Dark Souls game. Just take a break from that formula. Let's see what else we can do.
Bloodborne on PC. Well, we could
Bloodborne on PC or something like that. Yeah, like just give us, you know, get time to reassess what you want to do with the franchise, and like what it actually means. Because there are games out there like Neo. It's a game by Namco Bandai or Bandai Namco.
Yeah, I forgot that one came out.
That's a PS4 game, but it's made by Team Ninja, and it is a Dark Souls game.
Yeah.
Like, through and through. Like, they that formula is becoming a genre in its own right, you know.
Yeah,
like it's
which
not,
is I like it.
It's where to take the hack and slash third person sword game is in this Dark Souls direction, because character action games like Bayonetta and Devil May Cry have gone the way of the dodo in a way. Like Bayonetta 2 got released on Wii U, and while it sold really well for that console, it didn't set the fucking world on fire.
Yeah.
So speaking of Wii U, I think we can add some Wii U games to this list. I feel like when it comes to not getting the mainstream appeal that it should have gotten, because I think the Wii U was just came out and was immediately kind of shrugged at by the games media. But like Nintendo Land is an excellent game that really does showcase the platform. And I think there's so much bitterness towards it because of the fact that it wasn't packed in like Wii Sports.
Yeah.
Like, that's what everybody talks about. Wii Sports, it was packed in. I feel like 1-2 Switch is going to do the same thing, where it's going to be this excellent game that's going to get shit upon by the mainstreams and also the fans because it's not packed in.
All right.
And they should have packed it in. They should have packed in Nintendo Land. And, of course, as the years went on, they started bundling in like Mario Kart 8, which is, perfectly fine. And I think there was a Mario Maker bundle when that came out too. Like, they did start packing in these games that are excellent games, but they don't showcase the software because they didn't care, or hardware because they didn't care about showing off the hardware anymore. Yeah. After it came out, they realized that it was a failed attempt, and they just started making good games, which is fine.
Yeah.
But I'm afraid that the Switch could go the same way because the 1-2 Switch doesn't get out there as much as it should be. That should not be a $40 game. That should be a pack-in. That should come out, and people should be able to experience the Switch as Nintendo wants them to, the same way they experienced the Wii, the way Nintendo wanted them to with Wii Sports.
Right.
They didn't. If they hadn't packed in Wii Sports, Wii would not have sold.
Right.
At all.
Yeah.
I don't think. Because there's nobody's going to...
It had that mainstream appeal that so many other games don't.
I think Zelda helped when it came to selling the Wii, and I'm sure Zelda's going to help sell the Switch too. But I can play it on the Wii U.
Yeah.
And I probably will just play it on the Wii U. I don't think I'm going to buy a Switch until Mario Odyssey comes out.
Yeah.
But if maybe 1-2 Switch would have been that game.
Since I don't have a Wii U, I'm probably going to get a Switch.
Might as well, yeah, because the amount of money you would spend on a Wii U nowadays.
Yeah.
Because they're still expensive as fuck compared to what you would think they should be, because they didn't sell. They're still $250 for those things. It's ridiculous. And then you talk about buying a $60 game on top of that. It's $300-something. Might as well spend the $300.
That's one thing about Nintendo games; they never go down in price.
Yeah, exactly. And you might as well buy a Switch with a brand new copy of Breath of the Wild. But yeah, and another thing you wanted to talk about was Lethal League.
Yeah, Lethal League. Not necessarily a mainstream game.
Yeah, it's very much an indie title, and it was a browser-based Flash game, I believe. When it first came on the scene, it was very much in that alien hominid, behemoth type games where they were just making these Newgrounds-esque Flash games, and then why don't we just put it on a console or put it on a PC, put it on Steam, get it out there, and people, and I think it was just one of those things where there was just so much out there.
It just kind of flew under the radar. And the game's not perfect. It's not really well optimized or anything. You can tell it's an indie title, and it's got its problems. It has its issues. But for such a cheap freaking game, it has so much fun potential. Yeah. It's one of the best just sit down and fuck off with your homies multiplayer games that I have played in so long.
And it's one of those games that really was riding the It could, if it had come out 2 or 3 months later, it could have rode that wave of the rebirth of couch co-op on Steam and PC with games like Gang Beasts and Nidhogg, or just couch multiplayer games.
I don't know if it's on the console, but if it's not, it needs to be. Yeah. It reminds me Not in the gameplay at all, because it's nothing like it, but it reminds me of the fun that I had with Fusion Frenzy on the original Xbox. I don't know if anybody played that.
I think you're the only person.
It was a big title on the original Xbox.
You and Bill Gates are huge fans of Fusion Frenzy.
Fusion Frenzy 1 was great, but I also had 3 other people to play it with, my cousin Nick and my 2 sisters, and we killed that game. It was the Mario Party of the Xbox, and it was fucking great. Yeah. It was such a fun game. But even though this isn't a party game, it doesn't have a lot of game modes or anything, it's so fucking fun because it's intense.
And again, like I said, if it had just come out a few months later, it could have rode this whole other wave of these games that were coming out, but instead it started that wave or came out before that wave started coming out, so it wasn't able to really in a way it could have been the thing that really drove other people to make the games that they made that did end up finding their feet but in that couch multiplayer setting but on PC because these games aren't on consoles, Make it interesting because all the console games are going so online focused and everybody was taking split screen out for every game, games that like Halo is a game that I think is a split screen game. Yeah. And there's no split screen in Halo 5, right? Mm-mm. And Call of Duty even got rid of their split screen stuff. Just these games are games you can play with split screen, and I have experiences with playing them with split screen, and they're fun. They're fun, but they just no.
Maybe it's something with the rendering. I don't know. Yeah. But if you don't know what Lethal League is, it's kind of like dodgeball with baseball bats. It's hard to explain because there's a ball and you hit it with your bat or your cane or whatever. Each character has a different ability and object they hit it with. But you can play as either 1v1 or 2 teams or 3 people versus 1 guy. Yeah. That kind of thing. And you hit the ball, and when you make contact with the ball, when you actually successfully hit it, it turns to your color, and then you can't get hit by your own ball, but everybody else can until they hit it and turn it to their color. Yeah. And
it's like this sort of, it's like dodgeball.
Wall ball.
Yeah. What's the... It's Pong meets...
Oh, I know what you're talking about. The game with the little hook things, the weird...
Like Highlight.
Highlight, yeah.
But it's there's another... It's a video game. Windjammers. Yeah, it's like that it's like that disc, throwing flying power disc. But yeah, that's it's like that, but also it's got this really intense frenetic gameplay. And I don't know. Go out there and check it out. It's probably $5.
I don't even know if it's that much anymore.
Yeah.
But
it was
it's
in
one of those
bundle,
games that you always have in your back pocket for fun.
You might even have it already if you're a fan of Humble Bundles because it's been in multiple ones at this point. So go check that out. Yeah, just keep it in your back pocket for parties or whatever. It's just fun. It's just mindless fun. Let everybody see it.
And we want to go to the final game on our list. We're approaching an hour.
Oh, yeah, let's...
And the final game on our list is going to be a shocker, I'm sure, because for the first time ever on the SOGOpod, we're endorsing a phone game.
Well, I think I've talked about phone games before, but...
1 or 2, I think. Yeah, so maybe it's not the first ever, but it's the first time we've talked about a good one.
Yeah, most of them are bad.
Yeah.
Oh, this one's pretty bad.
Yeah, this one's really bad because it's time to step up, senpai, because the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links is... gonna be my underrated game for the final bit of this.
Yeah, this game has not made any real splash, mostly because the CCG genre physically is dying. Magic sales are dropping year over year. Yu-Gi-Oh! I believe might get a burst because there's a...
It should.
There's a movie coming out based on the original Yu-Gi-Oh.
I didn't know that. Is it live action?
No,
Please tell me it's live action.
It's anime. There's so it might get a sort of a pickup from that, and if they try to, so this game kind of came out in relation to that. So it's a Yu-Gi-Oh game. And it's
it's based on Yu-Gi-Oh 1.0. So
it's this is if you played Yu-Gi-Oh when it first got big in America, you'll recognize these cards.
Yeah, it's all the original cards. It's like the original 151 of Pokemon, but with Yu-Gi-Oh. Exactly. All the original cards, the original rules. So there's 3 monsters, 3 spell trap slots. Yeah. An environmental slot in your discard pile. So it's not... And it's 4,000 life points instead of 8,000 and 5 monsters like it is now. Yeah. I think some of the ones that were banned before are removed from the game, like brain control's not in there.
Yeah. Or they're just not in the game at all whatsoever.
I don't think it's in there at
there's
all.
no banned or limited cards as of right now. There is a spot where you can actually view them if they are if they do end up having to implement that.
I think the regulation ones right now are already banned.
They're not going to do anything to change the rules of the cards themselves. Because like with Hearthstone, if you play the other famous digital collectible card game, Hearthstone, not underrated according to the mainstream, is they can just fucking nerf or buff cards.
Yeah.
Because it's all digital. There's no physical counterpart. Yeah. All these cards have physical counterparts.
Yeah, this is all based in real life.
Right.
So, it's just...
and then as the game progresses, the game will probably end up changing too, because nowadays you have like they had this growth industry, I guess, around mobile collectible card games. With there's a Magic Duel game out there. There's a Hearthstone, obviously, is on mobile, and it's the exact same as the PC version. It even links, with your Battle.net account and everything like that. And I prefer playing it on mobile to playing on the PC. It just feels more at home there.
Yeah. And like the thing about Duel Links, it is just like the original game, but they added something, which is player abilities. And you can play with a lot of the main characters they call legendary duelists. So you got Yugi, Joey, Mai, Weevil, the weird bug guy, the dinosaur dude, Pegasus. Like you can unlock all these guys, and they each have, as they level up, you have NPCs that you can play against. Yeah, Mako Tsunami. You have NPCs that you can play against in game, and most of them are pretty shitty. Like they're easy, they're cake to beat. Sometimes they get lucky and fuck you up, but most of the time they're just.
I mean, it's all based on your draws too. Like, I mean, if you've ever played Yu-Gi-Oh, of course, we'll have to go through the rules here. But essentially the game is you summon monsters and you set magic or trap cards, and if they have a monster in the field, you have to attack that monster. And if they don't have anything, you attack their life points directly. Yeah. So it's a lot of a game about like cautious removal, knowing your tempo, like your draws and everything like that. Knowing like how your spells have your spells and your monsters and your effect monsters have synergy with each other. Because while you have your traps can't be activated on the turn you set them. Yeah. And you can't activate, and then they can also be chained to each other. So there's this whole chaining mechanic that doesn't actually necessarily mean what you think it means. You don't have to combo off of something, but you can. So if you chain and you can create really long chains if you have all the traps out there for it. And they don't necessarily have to be like your chain. What you chain to their trap or spell doesn't have to actually relate to their trap or spell. You're just using it as an opportunity to play this thing, and so you can take that opportunity. So like you have to wait for certain steps, and that's the whole thing. The whole thing's based around steps and phases. Unlike,
we're not going to get too much into the mechanics of Yu-Gi-Oh because
but you kind of have to know like you kind if they haven't played it before, because like it's complicated as fuck when you start actually breaking it down, comparing it to other, because a game like Magic. There's no phases. This is the thing that always throws Yu-Gi-Oh! Throws people off of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that there's these phases. There are certain times where you can do things. Yeah. And you can't do them in others. Yeah. So if you play Hearthstone, you can summon a monster, attack with it, summon another monster, and then cast a spell, and then attack with the monster you just summoned before. Yeah. And use that to help build your combos and everything, as long as you have the certain amount of mana to use.
Yeah. Whereas Yu-Gi-Oh, it's based on you can summon Magic. One monster at a time unless you have a spell on.
You only have that first phase where your main phase where you're setting all your monsters, and you can set them, but you can't use them when you set them, which is when you set them face down. Yeah. And you can't and if you attack with that monster, you've entered your battle phase, which means you can't summon another monster. Yeah. So like it's just like you have to know what you're doing. Yeah. And you always want to make sure you have a certain number of cards in your hand, because otherwise you get screwed over later on in the game if you end up running low, because there's no mechanic related to it, but there's a thing called tempo. It's a card game thing. Yeah. You get used to it. But like basically you learn like, hey, maybe I shouldn't throw all my shit out there, because what if they got counters.
Yeah,
and when they
I've learned that the hard way. Like I'll buff up this one huge monster, and then they throw this fucking mass card out, and
or they throw
I'm
block attack out there, and they hit you on your defense. Oh, great,
lovely.
Like, yeah, you didn't kill me, you didn't hurt me, but now my monster's gone. Yeah, I didn't buff his fucking defense.
But being a person that doesn't like card games generally, like I hated Hearthstone. I really don't care for Magic the Gathering.
Yeah,
I played the only card game I ever really played was the actual Pokemon card game,
which I never got into the Pokemon card game.
Now that I'm looking at it, it's a terribly designed card game. It's awful,
fucking horrible. Yeah,
but
that was that's the reason why I never got into it, because it was just so goddamn confusing.
Yeah,
and Yu-Gi-Oh was confusing as fuck when I was a kid. Like, I had all these rules in my head about what Yu-Gi-Oh was, and then when I started actually later on, I got back into it. And
I'm surprised at how well the TV show does with keeping with the actual rules.
Yeah, and but that's the thing. I based a lot of it on the TV show and reading the rule book that came with it, and some of it was just super fucking confusing. But and there's these things I had these preconceptions about what the game was, and so playing it again and going back and playing it in tournament settings in real life, in the mid 2000s, I got it back into it late 2000s, technically speaking. And then having to pick up all these rules and how the meta had changed so goddamn drastically. Because when we were kids and the game first came out, it was
first one to get Blue Eyes wins.
Right, exactly. It was a Blue Eyes fight. Whoever has the Blue Eyes White Dragon on the field, you're pretty much done.
Yeah, and now he's just a shit card. Actually, even in the meta in Duel Links, he's pretty shit.
Yeah,
partially because of the character abilities,
removal and shit like that too. Yeah. And there are cards out there specifically made to counter Blue Eyes White Dragon, like Dragon Capture Jar.
Yeah,
that only
and then
exists.
the Dragon Summoner or Dragon
Lord of D
Hunter. Yeah, Lord of D. I love that guy. But like I was saying, being someone that doesn't care for card games and someone that never played Yu-Gi-Oh as a kid, never was really into it, it does a really good job of teaching you the ropes and giving you an environment in which you can test yourself without them holding your fucking hand.
Yeah.
It's got these challenges that you do. It's like, win the game this turn.
I do feel like the game is a tad bit on the easy side. I think the AI is dumb.
The AI is fucking stupid.
Box of rocks. Because that's the thing. They do these dumb things. There are certain cards that their attack power goes up based on what the other person summons.
Yeah.
And so when they're on the field, you have them in an attack position. They only have 800 attack. So what does the other player do? He summons his 1,000 attack monster in attack position because the computer just sees 800 attack. They don't see the effect. So then when the fucking thing gets summoned, it's now up to 1,500, and they're like, oh. And they don't attack because there's no reason to. Yeah. But now that monster's in attack position,
but they do get better as you get later through the game. When you get up to where the legendary quote-unquote duelists, because you can duel Yugi Moto and Joey and all them at higher levels, you have to use keys, which you get throughout the game.
Yeah. There's a lot of weird stuff in the game. If you're not a fan of mobile free-to-play mechanics, you won't like this game. It's fucking chocked full of them. Yeah. But they took a lot of the Puzzle and Dragons type mentality of these mobile games and applied it to a Yu-Gi-Oh card game. Yeah. So the main draw is the card game. Yeah. Not so much the collecting, not so much the the other aspects of what the free-to-play games have. When you're playing a game like Puzzle and Dragons, the draw is not the puzzle. Yeah. It's just a shitty version of Bejeweled, The draw in Yu-Gi-Oh is the...
It's the actual card game.
Yeah, exactly.
And hell, I've been playing even PvP, and it's not because I don't have the cards to be good. It's just because I'm not that good. But I've been doing fairly well in PvP, and they have rankings silver, gold, whatever. Yeah. And there were times where I go on big winning streaks and get almost up to the next level past gold or whatever. But then I don't because I'm not good. But, if I wanted to really, really build a straight-up solid deck, I might spend money on it. But I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything huge by not spending money. And if you get on, I don't know if it's still going on, but they had an event for, the launch or whatever. There's another thing on
the moment I got into the game, it was here's 5,000 coins.
Yeah, they just give you a shit ton of stuff to buy cards with. Here, free cards, take it.
Yeah, basically. And, but of course, it does fall into that side of when you do run out of that shit. Yeah, it's a fucking trickle, at that point, and they're slowly giving you what you want and trying to get you to
although
to
if you
click that
do play
button
the
and
game,
buy those cards.
Yeah.
Which
if
I don't
you do
have
play
a
the game,
problem
though,
with.
then you do get enough to get like a couple of packs every so often, which isn't bad.
And I wish Hearthstone would get somewhat better about that in general. Like, if I pay fucking money for these cards, you better fucking give me some good shit. Like, you can flip that goddamn switch in the background. I paid real money for this shit. Like, I guess there's this, like,
but then it becomes
they
pay
treat
to
you
win.
like a junkie or something. I don't know. But, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! At least has a somewhat solid idea in that you get a box.
Yeah.
And the box has a set number of booster packs in it.
Yeah.
And as you run through all those booster packs, you will receive every single card that is in that
particular set. Yeah. And it tells you when you're out of this rare card,
Right.
and you can reset the box and reset your chances for getting that card.
Now,
which is pretty nice.
So as you keep going through, you will theoretically, after you go through all those packs, earn every single card that is in that set.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a particular one. But then there's also this thing called the card trader, who's this guy who will give you particular cards in exchange for coins as well as stones, which are based on the type of card that you're trading, as well as
and the way you get
rarity
those
of
stones, other than battling, because some of them are pretty rare, you can actually trade in your other cards that you say don't use,
essentially,
and you get stones and stuff, and it
convert
converts
them, to like their coin value and their stone or whatever.
Yeah.
So if you have excess cards or cards that just you don't fucking use because they're shitty cards, there's plenty of goddamn shitty cards.
There are.
So you can go through, and if you know what you're doing, do it, because like if you have played Yu-Gi-Oh at all, you know what cards are viable and what cards aren't.
Yeah. And one other thing before we shut it down for today, Konami, as much shit as I've given them about all their stuff with Hideo Kojima and Metal Gear and just everything that they've done lately, fucking kudos to Konami for keeping us up to date on Yu-Gi-Oh! Because they've had a lot of server problems, they've had a lot of issues, they've had to take events down.
And this has been their game forever.
Yeah,
like even the original card game, that Konami logo is in that bottom corner of those cards, forever.
Yeah,
Like,
and they've had a lot of issues with this launch, but it's okay. I am okay with the issues because I know shit happens. I'm an adult. I'm not pissed off because in this little upper corner, it's got updates every single day. Every time something happens that affects something in the game, they say, look, we're having server issues, so we're staggering we're staggering logins because we're having a server issue. That's why you're down. It's not just down and you don't know why. They give you a message that says we're staggering. Or they say this event is causing some issues, so we're taking the event down until this date or until whenever.
Right.
And they keep updating you. And every time that they have to do something that is a nuisance, they fucking reward you. That they like give you so many gems. And it's not a bad reward. It's like one of them was like 500 gems for an inconvenience. It's like, here, man, look, we know this sucks, so we're just going to give you some free shit, man. Here, take it.
Yeah.
And it's been so refreshing to have a developer really have that initiative to reach out and say, look, we know we're fucking up. We're working on it. Here's exactly what's going on, and here's some compensation for it.
Even though
we
they have
appreciate
no
you.
real reason to do that.
Yeah, they could just be like, "Oh, it's your phone. You think that it's your hardware can't run it or
definitely
something."
didn't like about the game though, and I have stopped playing it since it came out. Like when it first came out, I was on fucking board. I was ready to play it. I was going, and then I just had to delete it because I was like, I'm going to end up spending money on this, and that's going to be a fucking dark rabbit hole I don't want to get down. So I just deleted it. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I think more people should play it if they haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh! But I've gotten my fill of Yu-Gi-Oh! So I had to quit. But one thing I didn't like is the global chat or the chat rooms that they have. It's just,
it's full of spammers.
it's just full of dumbasses. Like
that too.
Like, I figured out how to cuss. Like, what are you, fucking 12? Like,
Probably, honestly.
most likely.
You don't have to look at it. It's
but
up
it's
in
at
the little
very,
notification
very,
bar,
very
so you
top
don't have to
corner,
look
and
at
like
it.
every once in a while you look up there and people are like, quotation mark pussy, or because like, oh, if you put it in quote marks, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, there is some spam in there, but it's a minimal nuisance in my opinion. I don't really.
And
bother
they put
with
you in
it.
like a different room every time, and
Yeah.
it's always full of the same dumbasses, like doing the same dumb shit. Like it's a very annoying thing.
It's kind of like being in what was the game? Meet Me in Wildy. RuneScape.
Yeah,
it's kind of like RuneScape chat. It's just full of shit.
Yeah.
But you don't have to
most
pay
chat
attention.
rooms are full of garbage anyway, and these MMOs and any kind of like game where interaction is a part of it.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that at least they don't like. You don't have to pay attention to the other person if you're in a duel with them.
Yeah.
They're sitting there spamming shit at you or something, or like there's not like emotes like there is in Hearthstone or whatever. It's just like the characters do the talking basically, and they talk shit or whatever.
And you're just like, you're an NPC. I don't fucking care. Stop talking shit, Kaiba. I do spam it like when I know that
really
they're fucking me up.
is
I'll be like, I'm about to lose.
What's the fucking dude, the vagabond or whatever?
Yeah, he's an asshole.
It's so fucking stupid. It's like, oh, he's so great. He's only great because he fucking gives you shitty ass challenges that he doesn't have to follow the rules to. Fuck that guy.
Like you start off against 3 monsters and they're fucking like 2,500 damage, 1,900. Fuck you, buddy.
But you don't get that. Like, oh, you only get one monster slot or whatever. But he's got 3. This isn't fair.
Yeah, I mean, he's fucked me up a few times, but I have beaten him.
Good duel.
At least he says excellent dueling, win or lose every time.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you're still a bro, but fuck you.
And I thought the rewards would be a little bit better for beating him, but they're not that great.
Yeah, they're just like, okay.
But there's a little bit of an XP boost at least, but that's about it.
Yeah, the Pegasus event gives you a massive XP boost.
Yeah.
Like it's at a level 40, which is like paltry easy. Like level 30 is harder than 40 for some reason. But like the rewards are like 16 or 18 times experience boost. It's fucking ridiculous. And after you hit so many points or whatever for the event, it like gives you rewards every time. And then, like every single time I do them, I get like 2. And you get the bonus from losing too, so just why not?
Yeah, just keep going, keep fighting them.
Talking Duel Links, really good game. I'm not a card game guy, but I enjoy this. I'm still playing it.
Play Yu-Gi-Oh, I guess.
Yeah, fucking play just play Lugia.
Yes,
play Lugia.
Play Lugia. Legendary bird.
Yep. That's going to be it for the SOGOpod. Don't forget to go to www.sogopod.com and check our shit out on our website. Go to facebook.com/SOGOpod for our Facebook. Follow us there. And, of course, our Twitter, where we're probably most active, Twitter @TheSOGOpod. That's going to be it for us, guys. We're going to try to come back, if we can, every 2 weeks because, our schedule's fucked up. We're getting lucky today. That's how we're recording. So we'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace out.
It's time to do it!
Just do it!
Go check out www.fnx.network and all our really awesome partner shows such as WAF, World's Almost Finest, and Wrestle Radio Australia, only on FNX Network.